people are out in rural areas and have really no way at all, because there's no fixed line telephone either. They would have no way at all to communicate, to, just day-to-day business, but also financial services and banking and those kinds of things. So this is transformational. And, this has been talked about for years and years. I think the UN did some studies years ago and found that the correlation between communications infrastructure and economic growth and GDP per capita and so on, it's very directly correlated. So this has a huge impact on these areas.
My next guest is Jim Bailey, CFO of NURAN Wireless Inc, trading on the CSE under the symbol NUR and trading in the United States under the symbol NRRWF. Jim, welcome.
Thanks a lot, James.
For the subscribers in these areas, they don't have sort of like a North American or European standard of access to wireless internet. So how does this affect their life once they get onto this wireless platform?
Well, this is really monumental change for these people, because there's literally no coverage, no rural coverage in these areas. So there's no mobile phone usage in these areas. I mean, people may have a phone, but they're having to drive to the cities or whatever to use it. And if you think about what that means, and I think in one of our previous talks we heard from Orange, who was saying, in these markets, the economies are very much based on agriculture and plantations and so on. So people are out in rural areas and have really no way at all, because there's no fixed line telephone either. They would have no way at all to communicate, to, just day-to-day business, but also financial services and banking and those kinds of things. So this is transformational. And, this has been talked about for years and years. I think the UN did some studies years ago and found that the correlation between communications infrastructure and economic growth and GDP per capita and so on, it's very directly correlated. So this has a huge impact on these areas.
You bet. So then people sort of say, well, Orange is a $37 billion Canadian company. Why would they partner with NuRAN to establish this connectivity in these countries rather than just do it themselves? What does NuRAN bring to the table that Orange finds preferable?
Well, NuRAN has its own technology, and very unique technology, very well suited to the rural areas. And this is technology that we've been developing in Canada for years. And it's I call it disruptive even, because on the one hand, it's lower cost to implement. So it costs about 1/5 of what a traditional mobile site would cost. And then it also has a much lower total cost of ownership or ongoing operating costs. And it's because we use very low power consumption and also very low cost to connect the tower to the main network, because we use satellite. And it's worth mentioning that, we talk about solar. This is renewable energy. And so it's very environmentally sound, and it's very much on the development path of some funders and so on. But that's what makes it attractive to Orange. As well, what you're seeing with mobile operators worldwide is they're looking to others to own the infrastructure, and they'll focus on marketing, selling to customers, and providing the services over that network. And so in markets worldwide, they might be selling their tower infrastructure and leasing that back. In this case, what we're doing is building the towers plus the radio network that they use. We're making that investment up front, and they're just paying an ongoing operating cost rather than upfront capital cost. So they can use their capital for other uses and just pay us as they generate revenue, in effect.
Right. And how do you finance the construction of these sites?
The financing comes a combination. I mean, we bring our own equity, and last year we raised some equity, so we're using that. But also we're funding a lot of it with debt, and we're using both. We announced a little while back commercial bank finance that we're close to finalizing, and we've had approval for. But we're also talking to development banks, development finance institutions. This is very much in the sweet spot of those institutions whose mandate is to bring capital to these regions where economic development, raising the standard of living, all of those things are key. And so we're now working on a major financing with two of those institutions, actually. And they're very keen. There's been a lot of financings in the sector from these institutions, and that's what we're focusing on now, and we've got a lot of interest in it.
Sure. So I guess it's attractive to an institution because it falls squarely within the category on many levels of environmental and social good, or ESG investments, which is pretty much the the most attractive new category of investment to come along in decades.
Well, that's right. Mobile's been around for years, and funding telephony and the economic benefits that I've talked about have been there for years. But now, with using solar, renewable energy, these things can be done economically and can be done to the advantage of both the mobile operator and companies like NuRAN.
Sure. So besides the DRC and Cameroon, where else does NuRAN envision taking this partnership with Orange?
Well, we've been talking to Orange about their African footprint for some time, since we've been talking about Cameroon and DRC. So we're looking at other countries of theirs in the sub-Saharan region. We're in RFPs in 3 different countries at the moment, which are live right now. And we're talking about others coming on stream soon. And the thing is, now that we've got a model that's tried and tested, we're using that in the other markets as well. So there's a big opportunity just in the sub-Saharan region with Orange. But we're also talking to other network operators as well.
Sure. And do you envision being able to access local debt capital from local banking institutions to fund these different countries as well?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So the one commercial bank financing that we've announced has been passed preliminary approval, and we're just waiting on the final. That bank has a footprint across the sub-Saharan region and have already expressed their interest in funding us in other countries. Now that they've been through all the learning and understanding our business and the people and the technology, they're very interested in working in other countries with us as well.
Sure. Have the supply chain constraints globally had a negative impact on your ability to deploy?
They've slowed things down. Yes, definitely. I think we've been dealing with COVID for some time now. I made my first trip to see my colleagues in Canada a month ago, after about a year. So that's affecting all of us. We're not able to go to these markets as much as we'd like. And certainly we're feeling the supply chain pinch. It just means delays. It's not to the point where we can't get product or the prices are going exorbitant or anything like that. It's just really about delays. So that's been a bit frustrating for us, but that's the world we live in these days, I guess. And we keep an eye on the objective, and it's all going well.
Of course. So then in terms of, you say there's RFPs out for other countries. Is there a healthy representation of competitors applying for the right to provide these services?
There's not many competitors in this space, I'll be honest. I mean, as far as the technology, there's really 2 or 3. Okay. And we're I would say this, but NuRAN's really the leading edge in terms of the technology it offers, certainly in the 2G space, 2.75G. So there's not a lot of competitors from a technology side or from a delivery side. I mean, there are other companies that will be bidding and trying to, buy someone else's equipment in and then build the networks and put the model together. But they don't own the technology, and they don't have that lead that we do in knowing how the technology operates, knowing how to optimize it, and being able to suit our production to what the requirements of the country are. So there's really only a handful, and I think we've seen some very positive. The relationship with Orange is very positive, and so we're really working with that and aligning. We've had enough time to work with them to align our strategy with theirs, so that when it comes to technology evolution and how we cover areas and so on, we're very much together with this, and that we think that gives us a big advantage on these proposals.
Right, and so finally, you consolidated the shares of the company last year, or rather earlier this year, and so that's created a much more compact capital structure for the company. Do you envision requiring to raise more capital, issue more equity to fund the full build out of the current obligations in Cameroon and DRC?
The plan is not to raise a significant amount of equity. The plan is to do most of this with debt, most of the bill to come with debt, probably to a ratio of 75% debt at least. We have, in our last fundraising, we issued some warrants, which we could trigger, and that would fund our equity requirements probably into next year. So we don't envisage issuing a lot more equity, and the focus is on the debt, the development banks at quite attractive rates, in fact. So we think it's a great proposition for shareholders, and the fact that we're funding infrastructure and hard assets and so on, again, is very attractive to banks. So that will be our focus.
Great. Jim, that's a great update. I appreciate your time today. We'll come back to you soon. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thanks a lot, James.
You bet. Bye for now.